So good evening. Welcome to the Play in College webinar. I'm Jeff Force, CEO of Play in College, and also a current athletic director and head women's basketball coach at a small school on the West Coast. Really excited to be with you tonight. We're going to spend about 30 minutes going through the recruiting process. I think we live in a very unique time right now with COVID-19. A lot of the summer opportunities, the club tournaments, the events that were to take place over the summer have all of a sudden been canceled. And so I think the biggest challenge right now for student athletes is how do you gain the kind of exposure? How do you maximize your recruiting during this time? And we're going to spend about 30 minutes going over a lot of that tonight. So really excited to get going, really excited to spend a little bit of time with you. In addition to my experience as a head coach, which spans over 30 years at the high school, college, and professional level, also one-time director at the largest recruiting service in the world. And so spent many an evening on the phone with families talking through the recruiting process. Also, my son got recruited to play in college. So I played in college. So as a former student athlete, a parent of a student athlete, a college coach who recruits student athletes, and then also a director of the largest recruiting agency in the world, I've got a really good feel and a really good understanding for this process. And we're going to spend some time tonight going through that process. So with all of that being said, let's rock and roll. Let's get started. So to start out with, again, name's Jeff Force, played college basketball, University of Missouri at Rolla. 25 years of coaching experience at the high school and college and professional level. 8+ years as an athletic administrator, currently an AD at an NAI school here on the West Coast. And again, as I said, a former director of the world's largest recruiting service. So that's kind of my background, and that's why I really am excited to talk to you, because I've been through this journey on so many different levels and understand it completely. And so want to really have an opportunity to share a lot of that information with you tonight. So the agenda tonight, number one is we're going to learn about and kind of talk about understanding recruiting timelines, evaluating your interest. So when we look at college coaches, passive or versus active interest, what does that all mean? How do you know if you're on a recruiter's shortlist, a college's shortlist? And so we'll talk about that. Maximizing your exposure during COVID-19. You know, again, we live in a very challenging time for student athletes and families that are in this recruiting journey. And so helping you understand how to maximize that exposure is going to be a critical element and something we'll go over. How to build a highlight film, finding the best fit schools. I think that's really, really important. I'm asked all the time about that. And so we'll kind of get into how to determine and how to find your best fit. Proactive communication, really important now that college coaches aren't able to get off campuses. How are you effectively communicating? And then finally, we'll talk about scholarships and financial aid. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about this. And so I want to spend a little bit of time kind of talking about scholarships. And no, not everybody at the college level is on a full ride. Matter of fact, a smaller percentage of student athletes at the college level are on a small ride or on a full ride. So making sure that we go through that and help you identify that will be really important. Takeaways tonight. You know, when do you get started? I mean, that's asked me all the time. You know, when do we get our son or daughter started in this recruiting process? And so we'll cover that. We'll kind of talk through that. How to determine if you're a sincere interest. Again, we put that on the agenda. What do I need in my highlight film? Again, you're going to be able to take that information away tonight and should have a pretty good feel about what needs to be in your highlight film. And how to set yourself up for maximum success. Again, really, really important that you understand how to manage the process during COVID-19. And again, we'll spend time going through that and talking through maximizing your exposure during this challenging time. So with that, I think we'll start out with, you know, when do we get started? You know, there's a lot of misconceptions out there, a lot of information out there of, you know, when do we get our son or daughter started in this process? You know, do we want to get started the summer before his or her senior year? You know, that's the big year. Those are when decisions are made. Well, I can tell you, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, we're already seeing 22 commits. We're already recruiting 23s and 24s. And so I really like to say that really that sophomore year at the latest between your sophomore and junior year, and that summer is really the best time to get started. Making sure that you're doing all the things that you need to be doing in the recruiting process is important. Summer is really important, and I think that's what even creates more of a challenge now with where we are in the recruiting process and knowing that things have predominantly been shut down on the college coaches front, because summertime is where we spend about 80% of our recruiting time. During the year, we're spending time with our team. We've got scouting. We've got things that we're doing, taking care of our players, and it becomes more of a challenge for us to manage that recruiting process during the wintertime. That's a follow-up. That's build the relationships. My staff does a lot of work, in recruiting. We do watch film. There are things we're doing, but 80% of our recruiting is really spent during the summer as we build out and round out our lists at the various tournaments and national events that we're at. So likewise, it's really important as a student athlete that you're doing those things to get yourself out in front of college coaches, maximize your exposure, again, during this summertime. So 80-20, 80% of our time during the summer is spent in recruiting, and the other 20% of our time, is doing other things as we kind of prepare for the season. It flips during the school year. Again, with academic requirements, tracking our players, scouting, practices, player development, all the things we're doing, this process is flipped. So summertime is a critical time in what you're doing. And then we already talked about, obviously, when to get started. I think the last piece I want to fill in is, when are coaches allowed to start contacting you? So when we look at Division I schools and then Division II, Division III, and NAIA, there are some differences. So from a basketball perspective, June 15th after your sophomore year is when college coaches can start reaching out. In the other sports, it is September 1st of your junior year. So understanding of when we're telling you to get started and when college coaches can really start reaching out and practically recruiting you, there are some differences there. And again, we're going to kind of get into the nuances of that and how to make sure that you're doing what you need to do to get started and be most effective in recruiting. Moving forward, we got a problem. And again, the whole deal that we're on tonight is talking about how to manage the process during COVID-19. And, when we look at what has recently come out from the directors, the NCAA, and I'll make it bigger on the screen here, is the Division I Council basically walked recruiting back, or what we call a dead period, until July 31st. So understanding that July 31st, until that time, and again, they could extend it, college coaches aren't allowed to leave campus. They're not allowed to have kids on campus. So it's really, really important that you understand how to manage this process during COVID-19. And again, we'll go into a lot of those things tonight, but really, really important as you understand exactly how this works. So how do coaches find players? So number one is I want to talk about our relationships. The relationships that we have with junior college coaches, high school coaches, club coaches is a key contributor to how we identify and find players. If I've had a player that has come from a particular program, I know that coach does a really good job developing his kids, getting them ready to play in college. I'm going to go back to the well. And those relationships that I have with those high school and club coaches become important and very critical aspect of our recruiting. So we do get referrals. When a coach calls me and tells me, hey, you ought to take a look at a kid, if this, again, is a coach that I trust, I'm going to heavily look at that. So really important that you understand that referrals is a big piece of what we do as college coaches and becomes very important. Scouting and recruiting services. Those are an important aspect. More coaches are online right now, and we're relying on outside information. There are a lot of tournaments, a lot of events that are going on. I'm getting invites every day to events that are still going on, events that are kicking off here during COVID. But again, understanding the Division I Directors Council and knowing that those coaches can't leave campus, that becomes very difficult. I think something I want to go into that I didn't talk about is the fact of Division II, Division III, and NAIA coaches. As an NAIA coach, I'm available and eligible to talk to athletes whenever I want to. Division III coaches can talk to athletes whenever they want to. So there is a big differentiator between those Division I schools, Division II, Division III, and NAIA schools. but those scouting and recruiting services are an important aspect of how we identify and find players. Games. So less emphasis on high school games. To be honest with you, college coaches don't go to high school games very often. I'll go to a high school game out of respect, a kid that we've got committed, that we're really close on. I'll go see play. But in general, I don't go to that many high school games because, again, going to see, in a sense, 14 to 16 players, and I'm there to watch one kid, and, to maybe find somebody else is a far, ditched effort. And so we'd rather spend our time and energy going to bigger events, which brings in club and travel. So, during basketball, which is, of course, is, what I know the best, even though I'm really in tune with all the sports, April and July are big recruiting months for us on the basketball front. So there are 2 weekends in April, 2 weeks in July that we can get out, and most of the national events are held during that time period. And when I, again, can go to a convention center and can see 30 courts, that's really going to help me from a recruiting aspect, because I can see a large number of kids in one location over a long weekend. And so that's where I spend a lot of my time and a lot of my energy. Some kids don't have the opportunity to play in club and travel because of where they're located or because of financial resources. And so some of the things we're going to go over tonight become even more important in that process and understanding that. So again, knowing that is a big piece of this and that's been pulled away, it's even more important that you understand and know exactly what you need to be doing on the recruiting front. The other thing is with these events. As a college coach, I'm not going to show up and hope that I find a kid. I've got my notebook here. And, if I go down and I look, I've got the schedule. And so, I know that, that Elise is playing on court 7 at 8 o'clock. And, I know Jasmine is playing at 10 o'clock on court 5. And so, I've already what I call identified or made that initial evaluation. And so I'm there to see specific kids. Now during off times when, I'm not looking at a specific kid, am I going to wander around and happen to walk or wander up on a court and watch a game and maybe I'll see a kid that can play? That happens. But, do you want to solely base your recruiting success on the fact of whether a coach by random shows up at your court? And that, again, that's why it's really important that you're proactive on the recruiting front and some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight that you're doing and doing most effectively. So evaluating your interest. The first thing I always, ask a kid or ask parents is, hey, has a coach called you? Have you got contacted from a coach? Have you got any specific mail, not general mail, because, coaches are allowed to send general mail. Campuses by mailing list, they send general mail. Camp information is not, oh no, I'm being recruited. Be honest with you. We buy lists. We buy lists of athletes. We buy lists of basketball players that we send camp information to. We want to get you to come to our camp. We want you to pay the $250 or $300 to support our program. And in my case, to support my assistant coaches who are part-time. And so that doesn't mean you're actively being recruited. So those conversations are what's really going to help you. Now, if you're outside of that recruiting window, have your high school or club coach reach out to a program. Find out, hey, is my point guard, on your list? Is Susie on your list? Is Billy on your list? Is that somebody you'd be interested in? So, that contact is going to be really important. And again, we'll talk a little bit later about proactive communication, but I think really hearing it from the horse's mouth, making sure that we're reaching out to college coaches, hearing it directly from them that, yeah, this is somebody that we're interested in. That's really going to tell you whether this is passive or active interest, is especially being in conversations, with college coaches. So what are coaches looking for? This is another thing that is asked of me all the time. Well, what do we need to be working on? Because, what do college coaches look for when they show up? So obviously we're looking for superior athletic ability. I mean, somebody can, run fast and, move laterally on a basketball court so they can defend, and, somebody that has great jumping ability. But when we move to other sports like baseball, bat speed, and, how fast can I throw? So, superior athletic ability is always the initiator. It's always the easy one. But there's so many other things as college coaches that we look for. And one of those things is playing against high-level elite players. That's why club is so big and so important today is because, when you play in these events, you're playing against the elite of the elite. So how do you fare against that competition becomes really important in our evaluation process, and seeing you perform against those elite players helps us identify where you may or may not be athletically. Doing the little things, that's really important. You're willing to dive on the floor. You're willing to take a charge, are you willing to go out of your way? Big in the recruiting front. Are you a positive leader amongst your teammates? Are you vocal? Are you outspoken? Are you there for your teammates? So I think that's big. How's your attitude? When we go to these events, the thing about it is that we're looking at all these aspects. We're looking at you, whether you do the little things and how hard you play and how you respond to criticism from your coach. When you get taken out, how do you react on the bench? So that's really important. Hard work is big. I always like to go watch a kid practice. Or are you just a gamer, or are you going to show up every day and try to get better in practice? So, working hard is critical. And I think probably over all of them, or one that supersedes all of them, because if you don't have this one, regardless of where you are with these other categories, we're really going to take that pen and mark you off the list. And are you coachable? Are you willing to take coaching? And so really that is a huge factor. And it's a deal breaker. A lot of kids that are very talented have lost opportunities, because they're not coachable. So, being coachable becomes a very important aspect. So, those are the must-haves. Those are the things that us as college coaches look for. And so you really, moving forward, want to look at this as you're going through this process is, where am I at? Evaluate yourself and how hard you're working. Are you willing to do the small things? How's your attitude? And again, really important is how coachable you are. Highlight films. So what are the most important elements of a good highlight film? Well, the first thing I can tell you that's not, and that's music. If you're building a highlight film, we don't need to see music. We're going to turn it down. We're not also interested in hearing grandma yell at the official because she thought that, you got a bad call. So really anything as far as background noise, music is unnecessary and not needed. So just leave it out. We don't care about it. We don't want to see it. The other side of this is length. So we always say about 3 to 5 minutes. This is your opportunity to introduce yourself. This is your opportunity to make that first impression. And one of the things that I always kind of relate directly to a highlight film is a movie trailer. So if you think about what the motion picture industry does with these trailers, and building these trailers behind adding excitement and fast action and something that's going to draw your attention, something that honestly is going to get you to go to the movie and pay the $10 to $12, that's exactly what your highlight film is. It's that 3 to 5 minute burst that allows me to see every aspect of you as a player, get me excited about who you are. So I want to come watch the full movie. And in this case, just come watch you play. Some of the things that we talk about, and again, relating it directly to basketball, because this is my wheelhouse, is, catch and shoot. I want to see that. Shooting off the mood, ball handling against pressure in transition. How are your passing skills? How well do you defend? Are you willing to take a charge? Do you rotate? Are you willing to get out in the passing lanes? Those are really important things. As a football player, wide receiver, how well of a route do I run? I'd like to see you run different routes. Am I willing to sacrifice myself? And am I willing to pass block? So, those little things are really important. And so putting every aspect of that skill set, those things that you need to do to be a top level, high quality player, are things that you want to put definitely in your videos. So this really gets broken down very simply. I try not to overcomplicate the recruiting process. And it's a process that, in a sense, sometimes people try to overcomplicate things. And so I really look at what I call the 3 core pieces or core values of a recruiting program, things that you need to be doing in order to have what we call maximum success and exposure, especially right now during COVID. So number 1 is an online presence. You got to be online, wherever that is. You've got to be online. You need to have all of your information, contact information, academic information, where you're playing this summer, what's your schedule next year. And of course, most importantly, is you got to have that highlight video. So having a one-stop shop that coaches can go on is really, really important, because 95% of recruiting today starts online. And that percentage right now is even higher because of COVID-19. We're looking at athletes and we're continually evaluating talent. And so if you don't have an online presence, really right now you're in trouble from a recruiting standpoint. The next one is best fit. Building that target list academically and athletically. Does the school have your major? Is it geographically at a place that you'd like to go? Is it the size? It's a good fit for you. Is the style of play conducive to your skill set? What is the coaching staff like? Are they going to care about me as an individual, or, hey, am I just a number that, they're going to shove on the JV team and that's it? So I think, you really need to evaluate and really need to build that target list and identify, really where your best fit schools are. So really important in finding and identifying that target list of schools. Proactive communication, again, with where we are right now and understanding that, coaches can't get out and see you play. You got to be reaching out to college coaches. You got to be sending coaches your online presence link. You got to be sending out your videos. You got to be calling them on the telephone, having those conversations. If we're looking at Division I schools and you're only a sophomore, that gatekeeper at the athletic office becomes important. Hey, when's coach going to be in? I'd really love to have a conversation because, again, just because coaches can't contact you, understanding that if you do get on the phone in a conversation with a Division I coach, even if it's outside that contact period, they could have conversations. They could talk to you about recruiting and they could set you up. I coached Division I before. I mean, what we used to do is we'd eventually get on the phone with a student athlete and, I'd set up that next appointment before we got off. Hey, Johnny, let's talk again in a couple of weeks. Why don't you give me a call at 7:00 on Tuesday night, on my cell phone, and, we can have a conversation. So once that gets started, we had a way to circumvent the rules in a sense legally, because as long as the student athlete's reaching out to us, we can have those conversations. So understanding how that works and proactively communicating to college coaches is going to be a critical piece. So really to, again, kind of review the three most important things that you need to have in your recruiting process. You got to have an online presence, a comprehensive location online that has all of those elements that college coaches want to look at and identify, that real first impression as a student athlete. And then building that target list, identifying those best fit schools, again, really, really important that you're doing that. Getting out in front of that, is going to be important. So building that target list. And then again, finally, proactive communication, willingness to reach out to college coaches, willingness to email them, call them, to start to build those relationships. So that really is the most effective way to maximize your recruiting exposure, even in light of the fact that, we can't play in tournaments, we can't play in big events, we can't get out there. That's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck. Yep. So finally, I wanted to just cover scholarships. I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there, a lot of misinformation about scholarships. Hey, Johnny's on a scholarship, he's getting a full ride. Well, I'm going to let you know that there are less student athletes on full rides than you might think. And we break scholarships down into two categories. So one being a head count sport, the other being equivalency sport. So as you can see on your screen, there are only 5, well, actually 6, what we call head count sports. Men's and women's basketball, of course, 1A football, tennis, volleyball, and gymnastics. In these sports, every athlete on these teams either gets a full ride or they get nothing. When we move to equivalency sports, those sports have X amount of scholarships and they can divide those scholarships up amongst their team, which again is where most of the programs fit in at, is in this equivalency level. So again, head count and equivalency, this pertains to primarily only Division I. Even though there are scholarship limitations on other sports, it's not an all or none. They can mostly break it up. And let me show you what I mean. So, if we look at what's on your screen right here and we look at the Division I scholarships, and we'll just take, for example, soccer. So soccer gets 9.9 scholarships. Well, when was the last time you saw a Division I soccer program only have 9 kids? Well, they don't. They've got like between 30 and 40. So this soccer coach is going to have to take these 30 to 40 kids, and he, in a sense, is going to have to take these 9.9 scholarships and divide them up. So, Jose's getting 10,000. and Johnny's getting 2,000. And so dividing those up to equal 9.9. So you can see that based on these scholarship numbers and the numbers that are on teams, most of these programs don't have full scholarships. And the other thing is even if they have full scholarships, the programs are not necessarily fully funded, which means they don't necessarily have to abide by these head count numbers. And so in a lot of schools, we're going to see less numbers. We see less scholarship dollars because of funding models and because of the way schools fund their programs. And so understand that there are not a large percentage of student athletes that have an opportunity or get a full ride scholarship. So, just because you're turning down that $3,000 scholarship from that small school, understand that really might be the best deal you're getting. And again, when you look at it over a 4-year period, somebody that's going to give you $12,000 to pay for your education and you get an opportunity to play college athletics, that's a pretty good opportunity. So you want to make sure that you evaluate all of those things we talked about. Is it on my target list? Is it a good fit? But again, also understand that the chances of you getting a full ride scholarship are really far and few between unless you're really a superior athlete. So the thing I want to ask you is that how are you currently managing your process? So, we've went through a number of things tonight and we've talked about the must-dos, especially what we call the big three. So I'd ask you is where can I go right now and learn about you? Where are you housing your online presence? Do you know what you're looking for? Have you identified your best fit schools? I think that's really important that you understand what's important to you and you're building that list. And then are you currently calling or reaching out to college coaches? How many of these 3 things are you currently doing? And then you wonder why you're not getting recruited. You wonder why, you don't have the kind of exposure you'd like. You don't have the scholarship offers you'd like because simply you're waiting around and you're hoping that phone's going to ring. You're hoping that mail's going to come in. You're hoping the right coach happens to venture onto your court or onto your field to watch you play. And that's not necessarily going to happen. You only get one shot at this. And last thing I want you to do is have any regrets that when you walk across that stage and you get your high school diploma or as a junior college player, you get your associate's degree. And then you're like, now what am I doing? Now where am I going? We can't hit the rewind button. We don't get to do this again. So again, identifying those 3 things and really knowing where you are in the process becomes really important. So if we're to take this and we're really to outline it and say, well, what do I need? Where do I begin? Well, first of all, what I'm recommending is I recommend you find a one-stop shop. You find one place or one way or one method by which you can do everything you need to do. That's going to simplify the process. It's going to streamline your activity, and it's going to make you much more efficient in the recruiting process. So, you need a place that's going to house your athletic profile. You need to have the ability to search for and favorite your most important colleges, those ones that are a best fit. You need to have a place that you can highlight and build your 3 to 5 minute video that we talked about tonight. It'd really be nice if there's a place that I could consolidate and keep all of my notes. A place that had all of the college coaches so I could email and had their phone numbers to reach out. A lot of these things we're looking at, we can do these on a multitude of places. I can create a web page and build an athletic profile and, I can get some editing software and put my highlight video together. And, I can just start searching the internet and going through schools. Yeah, that's true. All this is technically available if we want to put all these pieces together. But, it's kind of like retail. It's like, if I want to fix something in my house, am I going to go 6 or 7 places to get the things I need? Or am I just going to go down the road and go to Home Depot where I know they've got it all? So again, really having one place that is going to help you with this process is going to be really, really important. And more important is you don't need to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars as certain places will charge you to tell you that you need help with recruiting and that, hey, we're going to take care of it. Again, this is not a complicated process. This is something you can do on your own. But again, having the right tools and the right tools at an effective, affordable price becomes really, really, really important. So with that being said, I'd like to introduce you to Play in College. So playincollege.com is really an opportunity for you to do this on your own, which is very doable as we walk through tonight, and get the same technology that you would pay thousands and thousands of dollars for at other places. So what we want to do is we want to provide you a toolkit of high-tech resources and information to do all those things that I pointed all in one spot and all at a very affordable price. And again, Play in College, $10.99 a month, or 12 months for $99, where again, you can build that athlete profile. You can search for and identify your favorite colleges. We've got a video editor built in that you can edit and put up and produce your own videos. You know, you've got that activity log where you can keep all of your notes and all your conversations with coaches. It's got that built-in athletic messaging system that allows you to, again, message college coaches, emails, phone numbers right there. We're going to help you get matched up with the best schools. So we put this to a match percentage. It's an algorithm we've built that really, really is cool. And again, real high tech and helping you find the right schools. And so having this toolkit and understanding how to do the process, because you can do it on your own. You can be effective. You don't need somebody else to do it. I'm not interested as a college coach in listening to anybody else recruit for you. I want to hear from you. But you need a place where you can consolidate your information, where you can do all the things that we talked about tonight. And again, more importantly, have the kind of recruiting success that you need as a student athlete, because our goal is to make sure that everybody that wants to play in college has an opportunity. And there are a lot of schools out there, more and less, there's a place for you, but you got to understand how to go get it. You've got to have a strategy. You got to have a plan. And just like you wouldn't build a house without tools, you got to have a toolkit to help put this together. So I'd encourage everybody to head over to playincollege.com. Check it out. Look at some of our testimonials. Look at some of our resources that we've got available for you. And again, we'd love to help you in this recruiting journey. We'd love to give you the toolkit where you can do this on your own and have the kind of recruiting success that you need. So again, really appreciate you joining us tonight. Really appreciate the opportunity that I've had to spend now almost 40 minutes with you going over the recruiting process. I wish you guys all the success in the world. And I just want to leave you with this. My goal is to help, again, every kid play in college. Yes, I'm a college coach. Yes, I'm a college athletic director. And, we'd love for you to come to our school. We'd love to have an opportunity to visit with you. But, this is, again, like I told you, is all about best fit. It's all about you identifying what is the best fit for you and having an opportunity. So I challenge you to go get it. I challenge you to put together the online profile. I challenge you to start to build that target list, put that highlight video together, start proactively reaching out to college coaches. And I also would highly encourage that you head over to playincollege.com, take a look at our tools, take a look at our technology. Don't let somebody charge you thousands of dollars, what you can pay $10.99 a month or $99 a year, and literally have the same amount of success in the recruiting journey. Emails on the screen. If you got questions about recruiting, feel free to reach out. Again, I love to help families. I'd love to help you, love to answer some questions about the recruiting journey and help you at the end of the day reach your dream of playing in college. Good night, everybody. Have a great evening. We'll talk to you real soon.